What's up, meta nerds? This video is all about the Quarren species. These were an aquatic species native to the planet Dak, also referred to as Mon Cala, the name used by their neighbors, the Mon Calamari. Their skin was described as being thick and leathery, while their heads are incredibly unique, with every Quarren having these bright blue eyes, two protruding fang-like teeth, which flanked a long, thin tongue, while each of these tentacles were prehensile, allowing the Quarren to manipulate food and bring it into its mouth. These seemingly gill-like structures are actually the Quarren's ears, with these holes in the side of the neck being what they breathe through, with what must have been a gill-like structure most likely located in these large sacs that hung off the back of their head. It is a mystery to Coruscanti biologists just how the Quarren developed the ability to breathe in air just as easily as they can breathe underwater, with some theories stating that the Quarren must have once dwelled on land, and that their breathing organs are just adaptations of lungs, while others think that their gill structure simply is able to pull oxygen out of the air as easily as it pulls it out of the water. Important for both theories is to realize that gills in fish and squid found on Earth technically could pull oxygen out of the air. That isn't the problem. They just suffocate out of water because air isn't dense enough to flow through these gills and keep them open so that there is enough surface area for this extraction process to occur. There were 3 different types of Quarren hands, and many believe this isn't enough to call them a subspecies, though this was the qualifications for the 3 different types of Aqualish. Some Quarren have 3 fingers that end in suction cups, while others just end in nubs like a human, and the 3rd type end in these sharp tips, earning the name the Clawed Quarren. Although the University of Coruscant may be holding out on a decision, I think these should be considered a separate subspecies, as it isn't like these are rare mutations, but actual heritable traits that result in different structures, not like some superficial difference in skin, hair, or eye color. The Quarren would usually prefer to swim around at depths of 300 meters or greater, and when they did want to come to the surface, they did have to worry about a symptom similar to the bends. People get the bends, or decompression sickness, when going too quickly from the high pressure deep underwater to lower pressure towards the surface, and though their breathing organs may be different, even fish have to worry about this at great depths. Fish venting is something that fishermen use to stop the bloating that occurs in the fish version of the bends, so similarly, the Quarren had to time their ascent to the surface of Dak. Quarren temperament on average was very self-centered and revering of tradition, combined with an unhealthy dose of xenophobia. While the average lifespan of a Quarren was 79 years, just beating out Americans, but doesn't come near that of a Wookiee or a Hutt. In their ancient times, the Quarren shared the seas with the Whaladons, Moappa, and the Knowledge Bank, which led to the formation of the Kokad, which literally translated to one who battles monsters. Though they were technologically inferior to the Mon Calamari, they had been mining the minerals of the seafloor for thousands of years before the 2 species met. First contact between these 2 was in the year 4500 BBY, about 500 years before the Great Sith War, and the actions of both parties would establish prejudices that would never disappear. The Mon Calamari were primarily living on land, but spent most of their time foraging in the water, which made the Quarren leaders fear that this civilization would eventually end up in the deeper Quarren waters, so they launched a preemptive attack. They would ambush the Mon Calamari, exploding up out of the water, and slaughtering them on the shores. The Mon Calamari were shocked, and not prone to violence, but they were able to rally a martial spirit, and used their superior technology to help put an end to these invasions. Though the Quarren species took pride in their fierce warriors, this unforeseen technological advantage confused their leaders, and to add extra insult to their pride was their unconditional surrender, as they knew the Mon Calamari were not exaggerating when they said they only ended the war out of fear of making the Quarren go extinct. The Calamari knew that to prevent further wars, they needed to civilize these Quarren barbarians. During the fighting, hundreds of Quarren children had been captured and placed in reconditioning schools to teach them of art, science, and philosophy, with a cultural outlook that embraced pacifism. When the war ended, these students were given back to the Quarren, where they inadvertently worked to subvert the culture. They did not feel brainwashed, and their logic was good, but the Elder Quarren pushed back against the Cultural Revolution, insisting that this was a Mon Calamari plot. Time takes its toll on all, however, and as the last of the war-minded Quarren died off, Their culture had been changed in about a single generation. This peace lasted for several hundred years, marking a time of unprecedented Quarren mobility, with many going off-world and getting jobs throughout the territories governed by the Galactic Empire. Dak had already been offered into the Galactic Republic by the Mon Calamari, who embraced the spacefaring aliens and eagerly integrated themselves into the galactic community. Now with so many Quarrens spread across the stars, we see them involved in everything from accounting to crime syndicates, fighting with Jedi in the Army of Light, and with Sith in the Brotherhood of Darkness. All this time, violence between Mon Calamari and Quarren was nearly non-existent, but that would change because of an outsider, a human named Hugo Barton. He worked for an Outer Rim mining company and recruited hundreds of poor laborers from Dak to come join him in a colonization of the seas of Lamared. These desperate Quarren and Mon Calamari were promised as much property as they could claim on this new frontier, but things quickly changed when they landed. Hugo Barton ignored the agreement, denied them access to areas outside the mining operation, and made them all live in cramped quarters, where old prejudices bubbled up to the surface. Though their anger truly lay with the human, their inability to hurt him or his enforcers turned the violence on each other, with these camps essentially erupting into race wars. This spawned the separate Quarren camps, the Shoals, which would remain long after Hugo and his mining overlords. About 500 years later, the representation of Dak in the Galactic Senate was split between the Quarren and Mon Calamari, though Senator TK's would start another rift among these species. TK's was allowing Thalassian slavers to work in the Calamari sector, resulting in the capture of many Mon Calamari. This plot was uncovered, and though he was only placed on house arrest, the senator decided that he would throw in with the Confederacy of Independent Systems. Nearly all of the Mon Calamari were against this, and even a good number of Quarren opposed him, but he appealed to the old culture and formed the Quarren Isolation League. The CIS were eager to capture Dak, and sent plenty of reinforcements to help their new Quarren allies. The first series of skirmishes brought the death of countless numbers of each species, with the Republic sending reinforcements in the form of scuba troopers, led by Kit Fisto. On the political side, the Senate had to fill the role of TK's, and found a pro-Republic Quarren senator in the form of Tundra Daumia. Though defeated at the first Battle of Mon Calamari, the separatist Quarren formed the Free Dak Volunteers Engineering Corps, a propagandized name, but which produced some of the Confederacy's most useful ships, like the Providence-class and Recusant-class. Because members of their species were so essential to the CIS war effort, the first of the human supremacist movements started to grow, with the Commission for the Protection of the Republic declaring that Quarrens could not be trusted, any one of them could be a spy, and they needed to be immediately deported from Coruscant. In the year 21 BBY, Rift Tamsin brought Aquadroids and Trident-class assault ships to try and help the Quarrens take this planet from the Mon Calamari, but this was really all just a part of Count Dooku's plan to use the Quarren to wipe out their fishy rivals, before casting the Quarren aside as well. The Republic realized how serious this threat was, and deployed clones, Jedi, and even the aquatic allies in the Gungan Grand Army. Once Tamsin's plot to take the world from the Quarrens was exposed, their leader Nasor Rai decided to help Prince Lee Char, and their combined forces were able to drive the CIS off-world. Mon Cala would remain free, and remained allied with the Republic for the remainder of the Clone Wars, though this allegiance would not be respected by the Empire. These aquatic species were an easy target for Palpatine's wrath, as not only did the human-centric policies allow for the media to overlook the subjugation of the Mon Calamari and Quarren, but their senators had been amongst those that signed the Petition of 2000, which was one of the last attempts to try and rein in the Supreme Chancellor's power. Seeing that the Empire was forming an orbit, some Quarren decided that if they sold out the Mon Calamari, the humans would treat them well, so they actually sabotaged the planetary shield. Duped by foreign powers again, the Empire quickly subdued Dak, and took both species as slaves. The Empire wanted the fish folk to fear ever thinking about resisting, so they leveled 3 major cities. Ironically, it would be the Quarren that originally let down the shields, Segor-Tels, that joined forces with the Mon Calamari resistance, and through their combined efforts, they were able to make this watery world too much of a hassle, and the Empire just left them alone in the Outer Rim. Though the Mon Calamari would go on to play a major role in the Rebel Alliance, the Quarren went back to their isolationist ways, with many choosing to form smaller settlements on the many other water-covered planets, fearing that Dak was doomed to be a part of the destruction that came with being involved with the rest of the galaxy. The few that did stick around regretted it after the reborn Palpatine's attack devastated this world in ways even worse than under the Empire. During the Yuuzhan Vong invasion, Quarren Senator Poe tried to sell everyone out, and later under the rule of Darth Krayt, nearly the entire population of Dak was killed when the Quarren Darth Azard followed orders to poison the water. And the final insult on record was when the Mon Calamari and Quarren that had left their homeworld generations before were drawn back due to promises of Dak being renewed, and all those that fell for it were quickly enslaved. But to end on a happy note, the Mon Calamari space station that encircled Dak was flooded with water and inhabited by both species peacefully. So that's it for their history, but you definitely want to hear these cool facts and behind the scenes stuff. Some of you will have noticed that I tried to use the word Dak to describe their world as much as possible, since though most know it as Mon Cala, that is the Mon Calamari name for their world, not the Quarrens. Some notable Quarren include N'Rin Vakil, who was in a relationship with a Mon Calamari, while the two were in Rogue Squadron. Darth Maleval and Darth Azard were both Quarren Sith Lords, while perhaps the most famous was Tessic, Jabba the Hutt's accountant. Some sources show that Quarren can shoot ink at their enemies, but a bit of a plot inconsistency I found when making this is that both in canon and legends, the CIS were plotting to just use the Quarren to divide the people of Dak, crushing the Mon Calamari before Dooku took this planet for the CIS, and they just cast the Quarren aside, presumably using them as slaves. But the Quarren built most of the CIS ships. I don't get what you would gain from this, why you would want your warships to be made by double-crossed slave laborers, instead of a people who were enthusiastic supporters that felt like they were a part of a movement to take back their world. And there are a ton of real-world references here, like Japanese being put in internment camps during World War II for fear that they could be spies, and how the Mon Calamari wanted to civilize the Quarren by training their children in Calamari culture, just like the Roman policy of taking sons of German chiefs, raising them in Roman ways before releasing them back to their people, displayed most notably in the story of Arminius. So that's it for the Quarren species. If you want to connect with us, help support the channel, or get your own copies of the reference material used to make this video, be sure to check out the links in the description. But most important of all, remember, you can have revenge or peace, but not both. And the Force will be with you, always.